So Lincoln Riley was asked about what is going on with Trey Sermon. How does he feel about him entering the transfer portal? And I was interested to know what he was feeling. Because at worst, we're talking about a guy that was going to be second on the depth chart. At worst. I don't think he can slide past that. And we're still kind of miffed about it. Because all Riley did was be complimentary. Even giving this quote. As far as Trey did a tremendous job. He was a great Sooner, really, really good teammate. He had obviously some really nice moments throughout his career. Loved the 3 years. We hadn't hated it that it ended the way it did for him. You'll know that Sermon rushed for 744 yards as a true freshman, breakout season. Came back in a year where everybody was talking about Kennedy Brooks and rushed for 947 yards. Means he was just 53 yards shy of a 1,000-yard season. Left Oklahoma with 2,500 yards in the bank from scrimmage and more than 20 touchdowns at a time when it felt like it was falling apart, but it felt like Jalen Hurts kind of precipitated that because we saw Trey Sermon go from being really the closer, really the counterbalance to the starter in the third and fourth quarter to being almost unheard of when he was healthy. His role was given to Ramondre Stevenson, who, by the way, fumbled to put the ball on the ground a couple times in some key situations. Right? Then, don't see him get the ball at all during the Texas game, a game in which, well, the defense shined. 9 sacks of Sam Ehlinger. But from the Texas game to the game where he got hurt, blew out his knee at Iowa State, talking about 9 carries, 9 touches total. And his rehab process, I think, was a little bit off-putting for him, just in talking to some people. And along the way, he's looking at the landscape. He's looking at what's around. He's looking at not just Brooks, but McGowan, because apparently McGowan's just that good. Even in the only practice that they had, and just watching through winter workouts, that he was going to send some other kids into the portal. Didn't think it was going to be Sermon. But McGowan's also one of the pound-for-pound strongest guys on that team. So I could see it, but not this year. And even going so far as to ask Riley more about what is the deal. He says, look, I get the portal is the portal. We get it. We've been the beneficiary of a lot of good guys coming out of there and coming here. And you know what? He's right. It was only a matter of time before Oklahoma lost a valued player into the transfer portal. Everybody loves the portal when it's working for them. Everybody loves the portal when they're getting guys out of it. We love Jalen Hurts coming in, right? We like seeing Theo Howard come in. You like seeing Obi Obialo come in. You like to get some really great defenders out of that portal, right? And he wasn't even that displeased with watching a talent like Levi Draper end up at Arkansas. Ty DeArmond end up at Southern Methodist. We're going to find out where Ryan Jones comes out. Troy James, Prairie View A&M. The only time that he was visibly upset, even with Sermon, he's not, was Austin Kendall. Wanted to block that transfer. Wanted to stop that kiddo from going to West Virginia because it's in conference. As if West Virginia could hold a candle to OU football. Even if they knew the playbook. I was down on that decision then. I'm down on that decision now. It was a bad look. You're the University of Oklahoma. You are Lincoln Riley. One player should not cripple you or even give someone that big of a competitive advantage when they play. And it didn't. The worst thing that happened when OU played West Virginia was the schooner tipped over. Took that turn just a little too sharp. But you know what? Even they are rebuilding a better schooner. Like it's the $6 million man. We can rebuild it. Oh, I mean, that just looks more and more stupid on its face. But now, he's in this era of Zoom. Everybody's video conferencing, right? Everybody is talking into their phones. We still got Philip Montgomery using the portrait setting instead of the landscape setting. Did his video teleconference yesterday. I'm going, hey guys, I can give you some straight up pointers on how to use this thing called your phone to make some really quality stuff here. Get you a nice streaming app. Can also help you out with, little Elgato here. Give you a little finish over the top so you don't have to look like you are literally FaceTiming into your phone. But you know what? Football coaches don't seem to care. Okay? They're football coaches first. They want to talk ball. They want to talk personnel. They want to talk recruiting. And that's what's really interesting about where Riley is right now. He's landed a recruit during this dead period, which is a win. Dead period is going through April 15th unless the NCAA decides to extend it. I don't see why they wouldn't, because at the federal level, talking about, hey, we're looking at April 30th right now, guys. Shelter in place. Stay home. New York is its own sort of incubator right now. That got to get it under wraps before we can do anything else, because we know in Oklahoma, everybody cares about the East Coast and the West Coast. We're not just doing fine. We're doing good. We're doing good. People, for the most part, are heeding what public health officials are saying. In our city, Tulsa, Mayor G.T. Bynum has been way out in front trying to put in the most restrictions he can to basically force people into doing the right thing, right? Started basically Saturday with TPD writing citations to folks that are trying to operate when they probably shouldn't be operating. But it's also a weird time because everybody wants to work, and we know some businesses right now are really facing going under completely if they don't work. So I know nobody took that into greater account than Mayor Bynum. But as Riley is going back to Zooming, as they're still trying to figure out not just how to do the football thing of X's and O's and figure out what their personnel is going to look like, figure out what their offseason schedule might look like in the summer, he's also trying to help coordinate with public health officials, right? So he's got another hat on. And that's the part of this that I wanted to hear more talked about from every college football coach. You are a celebrity. I don't care if you coach at SNU, Southern Nazarene University, or you coach at the University of Oklahoma, you coach at TU. Your voice matters right now. You need to be out in front, telling people what they need to do and how they can do it. And while it was nice to hear him talk about Trey Sermon because it gives us a little bit more to talk about, and it's not this pandemic, which is really its value right now, I'm more interested in what he's thinking down the road, because it's really cool and convenient to say I don't actually have to think about what's going to happen in July, which is true, and I think that's a good attitude. I would wonder what he and Joe Constiglione are talking about behind closed doors about how the season could look, right? Or whether or not we do have this season. Because those are also interesting questions. I think that's why people are already going to those links right now, even in their conversations with each other. It's more important for folks to be able to talk about the future than the present. That's why recruiting is such a big deal. Recruiting adds hope to what you're doing. No matter how much you suck, recruiting adds hope to what you're doing. If you can look at the class that's coming in and say that's a top 10 class, you feel good about the future. Hey, we're going to be really good. Doesn't matter what this year is. We'll be good next year. I think that's one reason why people are already trying to get into 2021 as quickly as they can, right? Trying to make peace right now with the idea that you could not have sports for the rest of the year at a minimum, right? Because if you can get yourself into that frame of mind, it doesn't hurt that much more later. Okay, get that. And there's some people like Riley who are going to be okay. There's a lot that aren't. I want to make sure we take those into account, because one of the things that I do think is limiting, and one of the things we don't give enough thought to, is how many people are really getting ruined by this. How many unspoken folks are going to be forever changed, and not in the best way. You know, most of us are talking about how we are going to be okay, or we're learning things about ourselves, or we're sitting down to finally write that book. I've got so many inquiries about writing books and YouTube channels and whatnot, and I just, trying to do my job. But also, what is it going to look like for the people who are just scrambling right now? You know, the number of people who were searching online about rent is due, or can I get evicted for this, skyrocketed. And I think being able to talk about these things is also therapeutic, right? It also reminds us to be grateful. You know, we claim that we are giving up these really big deals in our lives when really it's about conveniences that we're giving up, right? The water works, the electricity is on. Our cable providers and internet providers owe us an apology because they led us to believe that choking is part of the thing. The internet, for the most part, it's been just fine. You've streamed all the Netflix. You have listened to all the radio. You have downloaded all the podcasts. Your kids are getting 50% more screen time. You're on your gaming consoles. You know, there's a lot to be grateful for in there. Grateful to be able to talk about those things. Talk about sports, man. What has been interesting over the last 2 days is trying to just watch how the NBA and how the NFL have decided to go about their business during this very uncertain time, right? Now, let's start with the NBA. We'll get to the NFL because I understand there's a lot of folks that are into the football, and I am into the football, both European and regular. But the NBA is discussing how it might go about its business if it is given a all clear of sorts by, you know, Dr. Fauci, president, so many other folks that are involved in making sure that the public understands that they were given the all clear. And they have been over and over these different ways of going about doing business. One of which is, hey, let's put all of the teams that would make the playoffs in those 8 teams from each conference in Vegas hotels and have ourselves a tournament. Best of 3, best of 5, probably not best of 7 in UNLV's Thomas Mack Center, right? Why? Because the Summer League goes on there. People are familiar with it. They understand the mechanics, and it would be easier for them to go about doing it that way in a place where I'm sure they can make a ton of money, and they're looking to make up losses already. We know that owners that have teams that are going to make the playoffs probably want to do it, like the Clippers or the Lakers. They don't want to necessarily risk losing those years. Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks were one of the best teams in the league this year. Oh, by the way, the OKC Thunder might have been in the mix to get into perhaps the second round at the time. So I find it just interesting, right? So one of the reasons that I think this is not going to work is because the players have basically said, hey, I don't feel good about going back to work. As a matter of fact, Kevin Durant's business partner, former agent Rich Kleiman, said, look, if you're a player, you probably don't want to do this because you don't feel safe, but you also don't think this is going to help the national consciousness. Wait a second. How do you think that us not watching you play basketball is not going to help us? Like, I feel like that would. I feel you would entertain us, even in an empty arena, because you're doing something that provides us joy. Last night, ESPN re-aired the first baseball game to happen after 9/11. It was a seminal moment for our national consciousness, but also for baseball. Chipper Jones said, it is the most important thing I did in baseball. This is a man that won batting championships, batting titles, and won MVP, and was seminal to my childhood. Those Braves were awesome.
That's my guy, dude.
Right? Dude was awesome. He could hit right or left. I mean, he was just too big to play shortstop, about 6'3", 225. They moved him to third base. He played from left field. Outstanding ball player. He said that's the most important thing that I ever did. Is playing that ball game. Even as Mike Piazza hit a walk-off home run, right? I think that NBA players are a little bit too much in on themselves on this one. All right? I think that LeBron James saying, I'm not up for that. I don't like that environment. I don't want to be stuck in a biodome. I don't think that it's a good move. If they told you that it was safe, if we sterilized all the equipment, if we made the kind of accommodations that are necessary to create a safe environment, I think you should play. You have the opportunity to work. You have the opportunity to provide people with joy. You know, that is one of the reasons for which the NBA exists. As we are learning, the NBA is not an essential business. Neither is any other sport. So if you have an opportunity, you should take it. You know, the radio station is an essential business. That's why we're on. We also take a lot of pride in being able to do this. It's not something you get to take for granted. It is a responsibility. Show up to work. Do the job. As with the NFL is going about business as usual. They went through a free agency, which is largely pushing paperwork and making phone calls. Understand that. There's one hiccup, which is physicals. Like I'm sure the Atlanta Falcons would have liked to have done a physical on Todd Gurley, but did not prevent them from going to sign him, right? I'm sure that Cam Newton is still out there in the ether because of his play as a quarterback, not because you can't perform a physical, though that doesn't help. Same thing with Jameis Winston, 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, 2 national champion winning quarterbacks out there in the ether. But we had a fantastic free agency week. I didn't think it should go on then. It went on, so we talked about it. Tom Brady led the cycle. TB, 2 TB, and now he's trying to trademark that. He's going to wear 12. Chris Godwin gave it up. He's going to wear 14. It's all cool. We're going to have the NFL draft, 23rd through the 25th. The NFL is sure they could pull this off. They are sure that they can do this without spreading the virus, though everything that we know about this virus says that 2 people being together, probably not a good thing. 2 people that don't normally see each other, probably not a good thing. Oh yeah, the team offices, they're still closed. So the folks that need to get together to make these decisions can't be in the same room or even in the same building. So you're going to make it tougher on them. The kids are getting phone calls after phone calls after phone calls. I talked with one kiddo that went through the combine, went through the NFL draft process, did not want me to use his name, so I'm going to allow that. But he said, look, I've got 6 phone calls a day sometimes. And I don't want to talk about who they are because it's a lot, right? I think everybody's scrambling and they want to know and I want to know and nobody knows. But right now, the NFL has continued to say, A, we're going to go through with our draft process. B, we expect to start the season on time. And C, we're going to go through with our new playoff format. Nothing changes for us. It's a bad look. But it's a bad look to those of us that aren't writing checks to the NFL. And that's the part of this that the NFL understands. Roger Goodell has responsibility to the 32 owners and to the television partners, Fox, CBS, NBC, ESPN. They would love to be able to air and or talk about these things. I mean, we're talking about an age in which the most highly rated shows are talk shows like this one. Because we are still doing live content, right? We are still producing something new. We are not re-airing something old. As a part of that, ESPN putting Monday Night Football on in April now. Started in March. We're going to see CBS and Fox do something similar. Fox signed up for iRacing. Everybody's looking for a way to try to continue to pay bills, and there's nothing more important right now for them than creating content to talk about. I'm not necessarily sure that we need that because I'm good at my job and I'm going to find things to talk about because that's what I do. But I'm not going to risk putting people in harm's way to do it either. And I think that's one of the reasons I was so interested in watching SportsCenter Scott Van Pelt, right? Adam Schefter comes on, NFL's biggest newsbreaker, ESPN's best NFL reporter. And he went after the NFL, saying, look, we're in a pandemic. This is terrible. This is a bad look. this is not the way you should be going about this. We have so much science and so much medicine to say probably shouldn't do this. And yet the NFL is going, we'll do it anyway. Because that's what we do. We put on our events. And that also speaks to what the NFL has been, right? The NFL cares mostly about its bottom line. Only here of late has it cared a little bit about social consciousness, right? There's a reason as to why the NFL also prints money, because you can't be an apex predator or capitalist without not having some lack of feeling. But that lack of feeling is what we're here for. I mean, we're watching football, right? It's a paradox. You can't root for your team and not root for somebody else to get destroyed at a tackle. Doesn't work that way. Until we start playing jump ball like Starship Troopers, that's what it's going to be. You know, I have made some peace with this, even as I want the game to be more safe or safer. Maybe, what you got?
I said, that's right, citizen.
My man. You want to live forever?